told me she had just seen on TV. I'm going to put it right there so I don't have to write anything down, so we can just sort of just have a chat. She wrote me about you. She said that she enjoys hearing the stories on the veterans, which I present on the local television stations, and she said most of them are in her age group, and said that her husband had served in World War II. Right.
He was my first cousin.
Is that right?
And my favorite cousin.
And your favorite cousin.
And I was his favorite cousin. After all, he was related to all the Allens and the
Well, she says that she says you're a delightful cousin of her husband, and your name is Hazel Von Roeder. Is that right?
It's pronounced Von Roeder.
Von Roeder.
She's always gotten it wrong, but I never corrected her. It's V-O-N and then capital R-O-E-D-E-R. Von Roeder.
Right.
I just changed one letter.
Now you told me that you had you thought you'd seen maybe a couple of the long form shows that I do on KAMU, the 30-minute show.
And that had Bob Wilkinson.
Bob Wilkinson, right?
Because they're friends of mine, and Janet said be sure and watch Bob. So
right. Well, that's the show that I've been doing on KAMU for about 4 years now, and I guess I've probably interviewed 130, 135 local veterans who served, either served overseas or served stateside, or barely served at all, served in any capacity, whether it was in combat, during a war, not out of war. That's the thing that I try to get across to people, is the stories that I like to tell and the stories that people like to hear are sometimes to them quite ordinary. Sure, I've had my share of war heroes and all of that, but that's not what I necessarily go after. I want to hear just the stories of the era, stories of people's memories and thoughts of that time, how the country was during war, what their activity was having to do with the military. So I'm looking for all kinds of things. And what we do on this, every one of those 135 people that I've had on the show, every single one of them, I've done exactly what I'm doing with you right now. I've come to their home and sat down and just talked to them and just sort of heard about their story. So I'm educated once we go to the TV station over there at Texas A&M. I'm educated when we sit down and do our little 28.5-minute thing, so I know what I'm talking about a little bit. I kind of got a hint of what I'm talking about, you see. And what we do is we normally record the show on Thursdays, and it takes about 30 minutes to record it, and it's just you and I just sitting like we're sitting right now and just talking, and that's all it is. I mean, we're sitting at a table rather than on a couch, and we're just talking, and it's very easy. And anyway, but you can consider that later. Tell me about you. You were a nurse, right?
Do you ever read the articles written by? Oh gosh, what's Youngkin?
Yeah, sure, Bill Young.
The Greatest Generation.
Right. He has that every Sunday.
He came here and interviewed me.
Okay. I've done a lot of the people that he's done.
And that was in the paper, and I was so pleased with that. He said, "Oh, this is great," and I said, "Oh yeah," but it turned out very nice. And, and so many people that I knew called and said, "Oh, how they enjoyed that," and even people that I had just met, they said, "This was a great article."
Well, I promise you that if you'll do this thing with me, the same people will call you and tell you how much because I've done a lot of the same
I'm
people.
So photogenic, though.
You're a beautiful lady. You are. Oh my gosh, you are. But
in September I will be 89.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you.
And I keep.
You don't look like you don't look like you act 89.
I don't.
You don't look like you feel 89.
I've stayed active so many years. about 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and I have been going to cardiac rehab now, going on 7 years. I go 3 times a week.
Is that right?
And exercise.
And
supposedly, I used to stay on my diet religiously, but now I'm kind of,
Well,
I think 88.
You're gonna be, yeah. I mean, you're gonna.
But then I say I don't want to die of a stroke.
But you do the cardio, right?
Yeah, I do the treadmill.
Where do you do this?
30 minutes on the treadmill.
I know. Where do you go?
St. Joseph.
Oh, okay.
Outpatient cardiac rehab.
Right.
There at the Manor.
Right.
And I've seen people there that I knew, and then of course I've made a lot of friends in 7 years. So.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, that's wonderful that you stick to it, and you. Because
back to the women in the military, I've come to the conclusion that being a female in the military really does not mean a heck of a lot to anybody.
Well,
I'm kind of bitter toward the VA right now.
Because they don't treat your.
Only thing that I have ever asked from the VA is to get my medications, because some of my co-payments are $75.
Yes, ma'am.
And they don't have a program just for medication. And also, your health problems are not service related.
Right.
I know a lot of people that are getting benefits that none of their problems are service related.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
they get it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's because I'm a female. I finished reading We Band of Angels. Have you ever read that?
I haven't read it, but I know about it.
I've read it twice. There were 68 nurses that were taken prisoners on Corregidor and Bataan. Out of 68, one nurse has been able to get anything. One.
Wow.
And I have I retired from the Texas Department of Health in 92 or 91, and lost my train of thought.
Okay, you retired in 91?
Yeah, in 91. And I have the health care plan through the state with Scott and White.
Right.
Well, they ran out of flu vaccine, and so and they didn't think they were going to get any more, so I called the VA out here at College Station. I told them I, did not have a VA card, but that I was a veteran of World War II and Korean, and they said, well, bring your discharge papers. So I did. I had to wait in line till everyone else got their flu shot. Then I got mine.
That's just not right.
Well.
Yeah.
Of course, then when I said I would like to get my medication, then I think about all these young guys that are serving now, and they come back over here, shot all to hell and all that kind of stuff, and yet they don't really get what they should be getting.
Right.
We're too busy giving to other countries.
Yes.
That just burns me.
Oh, I know. No, I know. I sympathize with that. I really do, and I've heard a lot of other people say that. I really have. Yeah. So tell me how you got into nursing. I mean, that's what you. Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised at Welborn.
Oh, okay.
My father and his father owned and operated a general merchandise store there. My mother was a housewife. Of course, there was 6 of us, 4 boys and 2 girls. And as far back as I could ever remember, I always wanted to be a nurse. I had a brother 5 years younger than me that he was always my patient. Wonder I didn't kill him. And so that was my aim. I wanted to be a nurse. So I graduated from Consolidated High School. And a year after I graduated, I went into nurses training at Jeff Davis in Houston, which is now no longer in existence, but it was a city-county hospital, and you really got the training there.
Right.
And I went in September, and in December was when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I thought, gee, all the guys that I grew up with, my brothers would be going to the military, So my aim then was to be in the military after I finished.
Mm-hmm. After you finished nursing school.
Yeah, it was a 3-year program.
Right. Uh-huh.
My senior year, I was a cadet nurse, which meant I got maybe $5 from the government.
Mm-hmm.
That you went in to the service after you finished. That was mandatory if you were in cadet corps.
Right.
And I took my basic at Fort Sam, and I was sent to El Paso, which I thought was the end of the jumping off place.
You were at Fort Bliss?
I was at Fort Bliss,
right.
the station hospital at William Beaumont.
Uh-huh.
You familiar with Fort Bliss?
Not that familiar, but
it was
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And of course, you know, nurses don't fall in love with their patients.
Right.
But I did.
But you did. Yeah.
I married a paratrooper from Perry, Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
Of course, then.
Had he been overseas?
No, I wanted to.
No, had he been overseas?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Where'd he been? In Europe?
He's paratrooper, yeah.
In Europe? Uh-huh.
He was in Europe, and he was supposed to be going to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going, well.
Right.
But then the war was over.
Okay.
So he got out. I got out about a month after he did. But of course, if you were a female in the military and got married, you had to get out.
Right.
That was during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It's all different now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I lived in Perry, Oklahoma. That's just 21 miles from Stillwater. You know where it is?
Know exactly where it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I go up 35 to my grandkids live in Nebraska, so I go through Perry all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, Perry is not. You blink and you're gonna miss it.
Well, actually, sometimes we stay in a hotel in Perry because that's our halfway point. Sometimes.
Well, yeah. Well, my in-laws had a dairy and a restaurant there.
Right. Uh-huh.
We were married 3 years, and he died of bulbar polio that in 1949. It was nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I got out, I stayed in the reserve.
Mm-hmm.
I moved down to Baytown, where I had an aunt and uncle, and I worked in the hospital there, San Jacinto Hospital, for a year. And I really liked the military. It had a lot of advantages. You met a lot of nice people.
Right.
And so I decided to go back in the service, but I wanted to go to flights. I wanted to be a flight nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So when I decided to go back in, I notified the military, and they asked me what rank I would consider.
Mm-hmm.
I should have said captain,
yeah.
but I got out as a second lieutenant, so I said first lieutenant.
Right.
So I reported to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Took my training there. Worked on the air evac ward until I got to go to flight school.
I see.
And then after I finished flight school, I was stationed at Kelly Air Force Base.
In San Antonio. Mm-hmm.
1734 MATS, which is Military Air Transport Service.
Right, right. Now, when you had been at Fort Bliss.
First, I was at Fort Bliss.
Yeah. Then you were in the Army then,
yeah.
right?
Army.
So now you're in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay. Or the Army Air Corps, I guess it was still called.
No.
Was it called the Air Force then? Okay.
It's Air Force.
It was the Air Force. Okay.
It changed from Army Air Corps to Air Force in 1947.
There we go. Okay. Okay. I knew it was right around there.
Now, my oldest brother was in the Army Air Corps.
Right. Right. I'd forgotten the year that it actually changed. So when you joined in this would have been what, 1950?
Yeah.
Or so.
1950.
It was the Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were at Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Korea's about to start, right?
Huh?
Korea is about to start.
Well, it was.
It was going on then. Yeah.
Yes. But you know, there was all the difference in serving during the Korean and World War II.
Mm-hmm.
World War II, everybody went together. They was going to get the jets.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know, during the Korean, it was more like everybody, they just nonchalant. I don't know. There was not the togetherness that you was with World War II.
Right, right. There wasn't a focus
That's
as
right.
far as Yeah, like what we were fighting for exactly.
That's right.
The focus wasn't there.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a lot of veterans who served in both World War II and Korea. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody say, well, which did you enjoy the most? I bet it was the Air Force. I said, no, Army Nurse Corps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I married a pilot.
Right. Yeah. You did. Right.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Fort Bliss, though. That was when you came in contact with a lot of the nurses who had been...
In fact, I cared for some of the nurses that came from
Corregidor.
Yes.
Who had been wounded there. Mm-hmm.
It was pathetic.
Yeah.
They were a total wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Their life was, of course, there's a lot of people that served in the military. Their life will not be the same anymore, but
sure.
What they went through was unbelievable. Not just them, but all the ones that were taken prisoners.
Right.
When I worked for the health department, I worked with a man who survived the Bataan Death March.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how in the world they survived.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of these nurses are many who had not necessarily been wounded, but had suffered because of being prisoners.
The way they were treated, and the diseases they got,
right.
And they did not have adequate medication to take care of all of them. They would run out of it, and they never got any more in place of it.
Malaria, malnutrition.
Oh yeah, just malnutrition because the Japs almost starved them to death.
Right. But this was obviously a passion for you. This was you were making them better.
Every time that
mm-hmm.
they put a notice up that they needed so many volunteers to go overseas, I
mm-hmm.
put my name on it.
Right.
They got their quota before they ever got to me.
Yeah.
So I guess it was meant that I wasn't to go.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I really wanted to.
You wanted to.
I wanted to.
You wanted to be doing the same thing there that you were doing at Fort Bliss.
Right, and
mm-hmm.
When I was in training, Jeff Day, like I said, was at City County Hospital, and you saw a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I was really prepared to go in the military, but
yeah,
I wasn't.
Right.
But I adjusted to it.
Right. Okay, so let's jump forward, and now back to 1950, and you're in the Air Force, and you're at Kelly, and sort of talk about what you saw there and what you did there, and did you ever? You never went to Korea, right? You never.
No, we flew the wounded
mm-hmm.
stateside.
Right.
We had one flight that went out to California and up the coast over to Belleville, Illinois, and then back, and then we had one that went east. Ended up in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm. And you were on these flights?
Yes.
And you would go and you would pick up the wounded and you'd care for them?
Yes.
There and as they were being transported?
Yeah.
I see.
I remember I had one I don't remember his name, but one patient that had been in action, and he was just mentally confused.
Right.
And of course, a lot of those they had to restrain them or either medicate them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Give them medication.
Right. Mm-hmm.
To calm them down enough, that we could handle them on the flight.
Exactly.
And this one kept saying, "Please take these off. All I'll do is kill you." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll take them off, all right."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you were handling not only physical, but mental
that's right.
issues also.
Yeah.
You were dealing with all of those.
Really, a lot of the ones that were transported were maybe going home, or either they were going to a hospital that was closer to their home than where they had been.
Right. Because when they were, and these were Korean War casualties.
Yes.
And I guess they were sent all over the northern part of the United States.
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
So you said you went to Massachusetts, is that right? So you
yeah,
went
Westover.
You did a lot of flying
Yeah.
during that. How long was that tour of duty?
Well, let's see. I went in 50, got married in 52.
Mm-hmm.
Then I stayed in for about, I guess maybe a year. Altogether, I have 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed in after my husband got out. He really didn't particularly like the military, which I did. But he would say, oh, well, you like to go off and go out with those other pilots, which I did not do.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, well, I just got out.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the reserve, but then I had a daughter, and I kept getting this questionnaire. And I knew if I filled it out and said I had a child, that'd be the end of it, which it was.
Right. Right.
So now you can be in, have a family, altogether different.
Right. Right. So you got out in 52, is that right?
No.
No?
I got married in 52.
You got married in 52?
Yeah. 53, I got out in 53.
Got out in 1953.
Yeah.
And now, was all of that time were you at Kelly? Is that where you had, is that where you got married, was down there?
Yeah. I got married at his aunt's house.
Uh-huh.
He had an aunt that lived in San Antonio, and we got married there.
I see. And who was that? Who did you marry?
Marion Von Roeder.
Marion Von Roeder. And he's no longer living?
Yes, he is.
He is still living? Okay.
Yes, he is.
Okay, okay.
He lives in Abilene.
He lives in Abilene. So you all aren't together any longer? Okay.
No, we haven't been together since 82.
Okay, I see.
But I had 3 daughters.
3 daughters? Uh-huh.
Yes, my oldest daughter lives here, and her name is Deanne Snyder. She's married to Elmer Snyder, who is the chief of police at A&M.
I know Elmer very well.
Oh, do you?
He's your son-in-law?
He's my no-good son-in-law.
No, he's very good.
I call him my no-good son-in-law, and if I didn't, he would he would think I was mad at him.
No, I've known Elmer for years and years.
Have you met Deanne?
I don't. I probably have, but
Younger version of me.
Yeah. Okay.
I grew up with a guy, and he said, Hazel, I see your daughter in the mall all the time.
Right.
I don't remember her name, but I know who she belongs to.
Yeah.
Yes, we had 3 daughters, and the middle daughter died of cancer when she was 18.
Oh my.
And then the youngest daughter lives in Taylor, and she works in Austin for Texas Department of Aging and Disability. She's the director of internal audit for long-term care, which I'm very proud of. Both of my daughters graduated from A&M, and they have very good jobs.
Yes. Yeah. And your oldest daughter, who's married to Elmer, is that right? And what does she do?
Okay, she is manager of purchasing or director of purchasing for the A&M system. She was with the A&M University. Now she's with the A&M system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do in 1953 then, when you applied for the reserves, but you got married, and did you?
Well, I stayed in the reserve, until after I had Deanne, and that was, and she was born in 54.
Right. Did you stay in nursing, or did you?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I was in nursing 50-something years.
Is that right? Here?
I've done hospital work, doctor's office. I retired from Texas Department of Health with long-term care, which surveyed the nursing homes.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So 50.
I've always loved nursing.
Right.
And I go now, if I go visit somebody in a hospital, it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut. Nursing is not what it used to be.
Right.
Patients don't get the care they used to get.
I know. When my mother was sick, I knew that. I know that there's good nurses and there's bad nurses. And
there are nurses there to get the money, and that's it. And others that love nursing, and they're the ones.
That's right. And the problem is that they're all combined. They're all mixed. They could be on the same floor of the same hospital, the bad and the good. And
you never know who's a nurse and who's not a nurse. They don't dress as nurses anymore.
Right.
And half the time, you can't see who they are because the badge is turned upside down.
Yes. Yeah.
I will remember working in a hospital, and after Von got out of the military, he was a crop duster with Delta until they discontinued their dusting service.
Right.
So we lived in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, all over in that part.
Right.
And I worked in hospitals there and doctors' offices.
Right.
But one place, the patient would say, "Send me that nurse with a black band on her cap."
That was you.
Well, when we graduated, we wore a black band when we were seniors in training. You had to have so many case studies then, and then you got your black band. Then after you graduated, you wore a solid white. But then the alumni voted for graduates to wear black bands, which I really went for that.
Right, right. Yeah,
those stiff white uniforms we used to wear, white hose and white shoes.
That's right. With the hat. Now that was a nurse. Yeah, with the little white cap.
Well, you got your cap after you 6 months. You were a probie. And then you got your cap.
Right. Right.
I still have my cap.
So when you were in San Antonio, when you were at Kelly and you were flying, how often did you? I mean, you would fly out on a mission to maybe 2 or 3 different places, and then you'd come back to San Antonio until you were. How often would you be so many days on and so many days off?
You'd have. Well, it depended on how many flights they were going to have. But usually, and believe it or not, after Von and I married, we very seldom flew together. He would be coming in and I'd be going out.
Right.
So we would be gone, several days, 3 or 4 days. And then come back and maybe be at the base for 2 or 3 days and then go back out on another flight.
Right, right. Now he was a pilot, is that right?
Yeah.
What kind of aircraft did you normally fly in? What type of medical were they? Big ones like?
I think it was a C-54.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now one time, and I don't recall what kind of plane it was. At the time I knew, but I don't remember that. It was a big plane that had 2 sections to it. And we went out to California and picked up some patients that were burned out there and brought them to San Antonio. You know, they had a burn center there at Fort Sam.
Right.
And we brought a plane load of burned patients to Fort Sam.
Yeah.
But it was a huge plane. I wish I could remember what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably look up and find out. But yeah, the burn patients are tough. Those are,
I mean.
Yeah, that's what you don't forget things like that.
No, you sure don't.
Right.
This doesn't have anything to do with the military, but when I was 2 years old, I fell in the fireplace at home.
Oh my.
Fell on the back of my head, and I have a scar about that big around that slick as a button. But I was only 2, so I do not remember that at all, which I'm glad I don't.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I've had some patients that were just, I don't know how some of them survived, but they did.
Well, they had good doctors, and they had Hazel there.
Huh?
They had Second Lieutenant Hazel there. That's
well, believe it or not, when I got out, I was a captain.
You were a captain,
yes.
Excuse me. So you retired as a captain?
Sure did. I got my bars hanging out there in the hall.
I saw a lot of that stuff. I wanted to take a closer look at that.
Yeah, my 2 daughters had my name put on the veterans wall out at.
Good. It deserves to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, 2 or 3 years ago, my daughter Penny, who lives in Taylor, she's on the Aggieland Credit Union Board. And every 2 years, they have a conference in D.C. Well, 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, it was in September, so she has a teenage son who was in school, so the son and the husband couldn't go, so she took me.
Right.
I really wanted to go to see if my name was on the wall up there. Mm-hmm. They don't actually put it on the wall; it's in a computer.
Right.
Well, it wasn't in there.
Right.
It is now.
Right. Yeah. Good.
And they also have a women's memorial out at Arlington, which I was not aware of that.
Right.
And my name is in there now.
Yes. Good.
So that was my main concern, was to go and see if my name was there.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be there. it deserves to be there.
It's Have you been to D.C. to see the?
Yes.
Isn't that awesome? At night, it is unbelievable.
It is. It is. All of the. I was there about a year and a half ago. I saw the World War II memorial, the Vietnam memorial, and all of them. Yeah. And,
Vietnam is something. Isn't
it really is.
Yes.
Yes.
But at night, it's just. My daughter took me on a night tour. It was my birthday when I went up there, so.
Yeah.
We went on this night tour, and it just. I enjoyed the memorial with of President Roosevelt.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can remember fireside chats.
Yeah. I was only there for 3 days, so I didn't get to do near as much as I wanted to, but I'm going to go back. So.
Well, they have what they call this freedom flight.
Right. Exactly. I know a lot about that. Have you been on that yet?
No, now twice I've gotten. Mm-hmm. The thing about it is, though, I'm on so many medications, so many diuretics that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to me, you'd have to be at Montgomery at 4:30 in the morning, or either spend the night there, and then you get back to Houston about 11:30 at night.
Right. Right.
Now, I got a notice where probably this year it will go from Easterwood, because there's so many veterans in Brazos Valley.
Right.
So I may do that.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Right. Because I think they just had a meeting not too long ago about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I got a notice about that.
And I think most of them have a caretaker with them, don't they?
Right. Right. I believe that's true. Yes, ma'am.
When I was in D.C., we were out at the World War II memorial, and I went up to this veteran and introduced myself, and his caretaker was standing there with him, and I told him I was a nurse in World War II. She said, "How ironic, we were just talking about the nurses." He said, "You know, the nurses took the brunt of it," and I said, "No, I don't agree with that." I said, "The ones that were out there fighting were the ones that got the brunt of it." Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about this nurse that in the hospital where he was, and then he was discharged and went somewhere else, and there that nurse was again. I said, "What was her name?" He said, "I don't remember." I thought, well, long shot, it might have been some nurse I knew. I don't know.
Well, Hazel, I think this is a wonderful story. I really do, and I want you to let me tell it, because I think you'll really, really be pleased. And it's a very easy thing to do.
You know what Iris said. Now, Hazel, let me know when it's going to be aired.
I'll tell you, it's not live. We taped this whole thing, and I'm running about actually since the Christmas break. I haven't done one in about 3 or 4 weeks. We haven't taped one in about 3 or 4 weeks. So we've been running repeats for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So actually, I'd like to tape it this Thursday, day after tomorrow, while it's all fresh in my mind and everything like that, if that's okay with you. And it's over at KAMU TV, which is right. Well, Elmer used to work right near there, right? You know where KAMU, where the TV station is on campus, on the A&M campus?
On campus?
On Texas A&M campus. Well, I'll show you exactly where it is. I'll draw you a map. Exactly. It's very easy to get to. Very, very. It's right off of George Bush Drive, actually.
Oh.
And we tape at 2:30 on Thursday afternoon, if that's convenient for you. And like I say, it takes about 30 minutes. We get they'll sit us at a table and they'll put a microphone on me and a microphone on you, and you and I'll just sit and talk just like we're doing right now. That's all we'll do, and then it'll be over. And to answer your question, it will probably air not this weekend, but the next weekend after that. It's probably when it will air.
Iris and I, well, she thought enough, was very thoughtful. Her sister-in-law and brother-in-law died within 10 days of each other.
Oh, is that right?
Brother and sister, and they were her husband's brother and sister.
Yeah.
And they were buried in Houston, so she called me and told me what had happened, and she said, you know, you're more than welcome to go with me. Well, and she called me the first time. I said, oh, yes. Then she called a few days later. She said, Hazel, we got another funeral to go to.
Oh, my.
So I wouldn't dare think about driving anywhere like down to Houston.
Yeah.
Used to wouldn't have bothered me, but
right.
People now don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I do, they don't.
Let me draw you a map. If I can get a piece of paper, and I'll draw you a map exactly.